Hello and welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton. The guest today is no stranger to our set. In fact, this is the 9th time he's been on set with me on Behind the Lines. And he is an 18-time author, latest book right here, How to Wow, motivational speaker, Guinness World Record holder, and results coach. Dave Romeo, thank you for coming back.
So glad to be back with you, Diane.
This is great. There's so much to cover in this, so let's get started on this.
Yes.
I mean, how did you first understand the impact of customer service?
Well, you know, in your entire life, so many things happen to you that you can't recall, but I recall this event vividly from when I was only 11 years old, growing up on Long Island. Usually you don't get a lot of snow, but this particular year we got about 2.5 feet, so it was too much for you to just let it melt. So my next door neighbor and I decided to go around the neighborhood and see if we can shovel some snow. So this man a couple blocks away said he would pay us $2 each if we would shovel his driveway and his sidewalk. So the two of us are out there for about a half an hour or so, and as I was doing his stoop, he opened the door and he stuck out his hand and he said very quietly, "Here, this is for you. Don't tell your friend. It's for you because I saw how much harder you were working than he was." Now, I opened up my hand and I had a Kennedy $50 in my hand. And I learned several things from that because I can't believe that I could be doing anything different. We're both 11. We're both shoveling snow with snow shovels. But I learned from that experience, number one, somebody is always watching. Number two, that a customer can tell the difference between a good job and an average job, even if you can't. Number three, that two different people could do the exact same job at different levels of quality and proficiency. And number four, that people will pay more for what they perceive to be additional value, in this case 25% more.
Wow, you are passionate about customer service.
I am. That's why I became a motivational speaker. In fact, you talk about stories. I still remember this story. This is the bank story. And when I became a speaker so I could tell people this story that I learned from customer service. When I started out right out of college, I worked in a bank, and there was 2 lessons I learned working in a bank. Number one, people don't want to wait for their money. And number two, that a bank check is considered as good as cash. Well, they had this really great setup there where you could put all your money in a money market account and get interest, and you could write 3 checks a month out of the account. Well, it's hard to believe there was ever a time where I only wrote 3 checks a month, but back then I was living at home, so I could get away with it. So it worked out really well for a while. And then they decided to change the policy so that you could only write checks $500 or more. Well, that didn't really help me out, so I took all the money out of the account. And when I took it out, there was over $10,000. They said, you know, would you like a bank check because it's as good as cash, but it's safer? And I thought, well, that makes sense. So I went to another bank, and I opened up the account, and I sat with the lady just like we're sitting here. She was very friendly, very polite. She was showing me all the different varieties of checks I could get, and I'm a guy, so I said, I'll just take the blue ones. So I got the checks, and as I was finishing up with her, she said, okay, that'll be $35. Well, the bank where I worked had free checks. So I wanted to make sure I understood. I said, well, do you mean I have to pay for my checks? And all of a sudden, she just snapped at me. She said, well, you don't expect us to pay for them, do you? Well, I was so taken back, I just kind of crept out of the bank with my tail between my legs, and I got into my car, and as I drove home, I just started getting angrier and angrier. I couldn't believe that anybody would treat a customer like this. I mean, I worked in a bank. I would never speak to someone like this. So by the time I got home, I was just determined, I'm going back there tomorrow, and I'm closing that account. I go in the next day. I'm expecting them to be shocked. Here's a customer closing out $10,000. I said, I want to close my account. It was like a flat line, no reaction at all from the teller. He goes over and looks it up. He says, I'm sorry, Mr. Romeo, we're not going to be able to close your account today. I said, well, why not? He said, well, because you opened it with a check, and we hold all checks for 7 days. I said, well, I don't understand. It's a bank check. It's as good as cash. He said, well, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. We hold all checks for 7 days because that's our policy. Well, I said, this is not acceptable. So he brought over a manager. I explained what happened. The manager said, well, I'm sorry, sir, the teller is right. We hold all checks for 7 days. I said, yes, but it's a bank check. I worked in a bank. I know how this works. He said, I'm sorry, sir, we hold all checks 7 days. That's our policy. Well, I felt there was nothing else I could do, so I went home, but I wasn't happy about it. 1 week later, I'm back. I'm the first one in the door. I can't wait till they see me come in with a head of steam to close my account. I want to close my account. Again, flatlining again, no reaction. Close the account, get my bank check back. Now the good news is, the first bank that changed their policy, they lost so much business that they changed it back. So I put the money back in the original account. I come home that same day and there's a box in the mail. And in the mail are my checks. I don't even want to look at these checks, so I just put them in a waste paper basket. Later on that afternoon, I get a call from the second bank, the one I just closed. Mr. Romeo, did you get your checks today? I said, I did, but do you know I closed my account? He said, yeah, we know that, but did you look at your checks? I said, no, but they're right here. He said, okay, could you take a look at them? So I look at the checks, I open them up, and it says, the name on it says, Emilio Rodriguez. Well, I said, well, these are not my checks. He said, we were afraid of that, Mr. Romeo. We had a mix-up. We sent you the wrong checks. Would it be possible for you to drop those checks back to the bank? I said, no problem. I'll be glad to do it. He said, okay. He said, well, just drop them down anytime today, because I'll be here all afternoon. And Diane, I know I shouldn't have done it, but there was just something about the presumptuousness in his voice when he said, just bring them down today. And I couldn't stop myself, and I said, today? Oh, I can't bring these checks back today. I have to hold all checks for 7 days. And he's, what? I said, yeah, you know, it's my policy. I have a policy. You know how you have a policy, you hold all checks for 7 days? Well, I have the same policy. You wouldn't expect my policy to be any less rigid than yours. Well, at that point, he puts me on hold. He goes to find his branch manager, explains there's a lunatic on the phone. He will not give back the checks for 7 days. He gets back, he says, Mr. Romeo, why don't you just destroy the checks? I said, I'll bring them back in a week. He said, no, that's okay, we'll take care of it. I even tried to call Emilio Rodriguez, couldn't find anybody that spoke English, I didn't speak Spanish, but I learned something from that experience. Wow. Okay, number one, when you have an opportunity to serve people, you have to remember what it feels like to be on the other end. Mm-hmm. So as a rule of thumb, this is what I recommend when you're trying to take care of your customers. If there's anything from stopping you taking care of your customers, think about it like this. If it's a commandment, obey it. Mm. If it's a law, change it. Mm-hmm. If it's a rule, break it. And if it's a policy, ignore it. So that's the guidelines I try to use for people that want to deliver legendary customer service.
Wow, what a story. So we've got to find out how to wow.
Yes.
Why you wrote this.
I wrote this book to really spotlight the ultimate service providers that I have on my website. Mm-hmm. These are people who consistently deliver great performance to their customers. The criteria to be an ultimate service provider is that they have to be super responsive, they have to commit to their commitments, and they have to be congruent in their words and their actions. And one more factor, besides the fact that I need to know them for a year or longer to make sure that they're not just trying to impress me one time. Mm-hmm. They have to be consistent in the other three. Now, Diane, being consistent on its own is not good or bad. You could be consistently late. You could be consistently boring. You could be consistently rude. What I want them to do is consistently commit to their commitments, be super responsive, and be congruent in their words and their actions.
Absolutely. A customer superhero. You have a story with that.
I do. I see them all the time. There's one lady who was a server over at Garfield's restaurant right here in Lancaster. And one day, one of my mentors and I decided we were going to meet once a month for lunch so we could get together. And as I sat down, I got there first, and the hostess said, Stephanie would like to serve you. Well, she wanted to know if it was okay, and I said, well, sure. I didn't remember who she was, but I definitely wanted to meet her. She comes out of the kitchen with a big smile on her face and a glass of strawberry lemonade in her hand, and she brings it over to the table and says, hello. And I said, hi, how did you know I wanted that? She said, well, because that's what you ordered the last time you were here.
Wow.
No, I didn't even remember that I'd met her before. Wow. So we had lunch. The entire time we're eating, I never once had to ask Stephanie to fill my drink, refill it. Always filled. Mm-hmm. When we were done, I said, well, where do you want to meet for lunch next month? And Laura, my mentor, said, well, if the service is this good here, why would we want to go anywhere else? Mm. So the next month, I come back in, and I'm sitting there, and Stephanie comes over with my strawberry lemonade, and she said, hi, who are you meeting with today? And I said, well, it's going to be Laura again. She goes, okay, I'll go get her iced tea with no lemon. Now, wow. I don't know what she drank. I said, that's pretty impressive. She said, I want to memorize what all of your guests drink. Wow. Now, one day, I was sitting there with a whole bunch of my guests. It was after one of the seminars, and there were about 4 tables full of people there. And as we were sitting there, Stephanie comes over, but as usual, I'm talking, so she doesn't want to interrupt, but you could see the sheepish look on her face. And when I took a breath, I just leaned over and she kind of whispered to me and she said, I just wanted to apologize to you because there's not that many strawberries in your drink today. You see, somebody poured all the strawberries in this great big pitcher and then they put the ice cubes on top. So the only way to get all the strawberries would be to get a ladle or something and dig down inside and fish them out. I said, you know what? I didn't notice. It's not a problem. Don't worry about it. But thanks for mentioning it.
Wow.
Well, we're sitting there talking, and later on Stephanie comes out and she's holding a glass of strawberry lemonade and it is overflowing with strawberries now. And now I'm talking, so she doesn't want to interrupt, so she walks over with this nice big smile, she puts the glass down, and then just to make sure that she knows what I know what she did, she just gives me this little smile and walks away.
Yeah.
Another time when I was in there, I had just come back from Florida, and while I was in Florida, I took out all the extra cards I wouldn't need down there, including my Platinum Club card, which gives me a discount for the restaurant. Well, when I got back, I forgot to put it back in my wallet, and I'd been back 3 or 4 times, and I just said to Stephanie, I said, by the way, do you remember to use my Platinum card? I forgot to bring it. She goes, oh, yes, I always use it. I memorized your Platinum card number.
Oh my gosh.
Now, this woman was 23 years old
Wow.
when she did this. She didn't learn this in an employee handbook. This is just who she was. That's why Stephanie is my customer service superhero.
Wow, she certainly is. And we've got a lot of stories that we still want to continue with, but there's a website where we can find out all things Dave Romeo.
Yes.
Even, CDs, DVDs, TV show, blog, book,
Online university.
Online university and all of that. And that is what?
www.daveromeo.com.
Now let's keep it easy, right?
Yes, I hardly ever forget it.
Well, that's good. That's good. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
LCTV 66 is your community channel, and your donations keep us on the air and help to produce more local programs. Send your tax-deductible donation of $500, $100, or more to the address on the screen. Or think of it this way, for the price of a couple of movie tickets, you can help support your community channel. Send what you can and be a part of all that is good about Lancaster County. Thank you for your tax-deductible donation to LCTV 66, Lancaster's Connection.
Welcome back to Behind the Lines. We're with Dave Romeo, and this is his 18th book, How to Wow. Great book. Ultimate Service Providers, and on the front it says the art of consistently delivering legendary customer service. All walks of life with this,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, somebody said, some people are not professionals on your list. I said, anybody can be an ultimate service provider. I've seen beggars in supermarkets. I've had people in assisted living facilities. One of my favorites works for the post office. The last place you would think of for legendary customer service. One day I was going into the Reams post office, which is a very small one-person post office, and I thought I knew when the lunch break was, because they do close down for an hour, and I had my time wrong. I'm going in, the door is locked, and as I'm trying to get in, I notice to the side, George is leaving, going to his car, and he said, did you need something? I said, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I got the time wrong, I just wanted to mail this book. He went back into the post office, opened everything up again, took my transaction, and then took care of the lady that came in behind me while he was open on his lunch break. That's what I mean by an ultimate service provider.
Wow. Define legendary service.
Well, Walt Disney once said, do what you do so well that people will come to see you do it again. For me, legendary customer service is service so unexpectedly great that you can't wait to call it to the attention of other people.
Wow. Is there a formula to wow?
There is. How to wow? This is what it is. You need to demonstrate that you are more concerned that your customers have a great experience with you than they are. Now, you can't tell them you want to do it. You have to demonstrate. One of my favorite stories occurred on our 25th anniversary cruise on Princess Cruise Lines. We were in the Mediterranean Sea for 3 weeks. So you get to know a lot of the people on the crew. And you have a cabin steward. Well, we knew our cabin steward, but we saw the other one at the end of the long hallway every day where we would pass by. But we would just be cordial and say hello and good morning or whatever it is. So we never really got to know him. I don't think English was his first language. I think he was from another country. But he was just always polite and friendly. Well, I got into my daily ritual on the cruise ship, which was to go down in the afternoon before dinner in my Pittsburgh Penguins cap with my Hawaiian shirt on and my bathing suit, and I would walk down there with my book in hand so I could read for an hour in the hot tub.
Okay.
So I would just be passing back and forth. And at the end of the cruise, he's seen me go back and forth about 3 weeks worth of time. And he passed me, and I'm going down, and I'm just about out of earshot. I'm just about at the elevator in my outfit. And all of a sudden I hear in the back, "Go Penguins!" I had no idea that he even knew what the logo on my hat was. I mean, he could have said that to anybody else on that cruise ship. It wouldn't have meant anything. But what it meant to me was he was looking for ways to demonstrate that he was more concerned that I had a great experience on the trip than I was. And you know what? That not only made my day, that made my entire cruise.
Oh, that's great. Can anyone wow?
Well, of course. And you don't even have to be working to wow. In fact, you told me that you recently did an event for New Year's Eve, and the theme was...
Studio 54.
And remember, I said I have my own Studio 54 story because years ago, I was dating this young lady, and I wanted to really impress her. So I said, plan for a night out. It's going to be a surprise. So I didn't tell her where we were going. So the first thing we did, I think it was a Friday night, we just went for a couple of slices of pizza. Then we got on the train, this is in New York, got on the train and we went to New York City, and then at the time, Annie had opened the musical on Broadway, so I had tickets for Annie, so we went to see the show on Broadway, and as we're leaving the theater, we're just walking around in the evening, and we walk down the street, and all of a sudden she's looking up, and she said, "What's that?" And I said, "I don't know, let's get closer." So we got closer, and all of a sudden she goes, "That's Studio 54. I said, "Oh yeah." She goes, "Oh, let's go take a look." Because if you remember, you couldn't just walk into this place because there was always a line and the bouncers would have to pick who goes in. Well, we're getting closer and closer, and we go right up to the steps, and what she didn't know was that my father was a New York City police officer, and that was his beat. And so I pulled this pass out of my pocket, I handed it to the bouncer, he read it and he said, "Right this way," and he escorted us into the club. So she was so impressed. We went inside, we just had a drink, we sat there for a little while, and we left. But that is my one and only Studio 54 story, and it just goes to prove you can wow even on a date.
Absolutely. How hard is it to find examples of customer service superstars?
You know, I find them everywhere I go. It's not even like I'm looking for them. It's like they find me. I was here just a week ago, and I was out doing errands, and I called home and I said to my wife, Kim, "Would you like me to pick up some dinner? How about if I stop at Chick-fil-A?" So she said, "Okay, that sounds good." So I went in, and I had just heard the story about this man in South Carolina that works for Chick-fil-A, and they had him on the news because he's so enthusiastic and so positive and outgoing. He's like a hero, customer service superhero. And I said, "Too bad I'm not going to get that kind of service." Well, I go in, and this young lady, also named Kim, anything she could say as soon as she made eye contact with me, big smile on her face. "Welcome to Chick-fil-A. What can I get for you?" "I'll have this." "Oh, would you like blue cheese dressing?" "Sure." "That's amazing. Would you like me to put it right on?" "Can you put it on the side?" "Yeah, absolutely, I'll be glad to." You couldn't say anything that wasn't going to make her excited. So when we were done with the transaction, I just said to her, "So did they hire you because you were so enthusiastic, or do they just inject you with a big needle once you get the job of enthusiasm?" She said, "I've been like this all my life."
Wow.
Now that same day, I went into Staples because for Christmas, I asked for a replacement electronic stapler, really nice high-end line. I got one. I couldn't get it to work. I mean, they even gave me a sample to prove to me that they tested it in the box.
Oh,
I
wow.
could not get it to staple. I called them up.
Right.
They said, "We don't know what's wrong with it. Send it back. We'll give you a refund." So I still needed to replace it. I go into Staples to get the same unit. They don't have it in the store. So Angela, who is an ultimate service provider, comes over. We're looking it up on the kiosk. The price is $90 more than the one that I bought online and my wife got me for Christmas. I said, "Let me check," because I wouldn't have told her to spend that much money. I go back out to the car, I get the model number and the price, and I come back in and I show it to Angela. I said, "This is the exact same one. It was $90 less where my wife bought it online." She said, "Oh, well, you know, we do have the price match guarantee, so I can give it to you for that price." I said, "You're kidding me." She said, "Oh, no." And I had a $4 discount card with me. I said, "Well, I guess I'll just save this for something else." She goes, "Oh, no, we'll apply that too." So not
That's
only did
great.
they take $90 off
Yep.
the price, they also gave me $4 more off. And that's why Angela is one of my customer service superheroes.
Wow. Wow, that's great. There's a tree rescue story too. Bob K.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking Christmas tree, but it's not a Christmas tree. This day, I'm doing a seminar down in York, and I have this camera crew from another television station in from Minnesota, and they're taping one of my seminars. So in the morning, they're filming, and they said, can we talk to some of your clients and do testimonials?
Right.
And I said, well, sure. So I asked Bob Kay from Tomlinson Baumberger, would you mind doing it? Now, he's paid to go to the seminar. He said, no problem. He does this beautiful testimonial. That morning, I happened to mention to him, we have another landscaping service. Something's wrong with our tree. We don't know what's wrong with it. If you ever have a chance, can you take a look at it? He said, sure, no problem. Well, that evening, the camera crew is done. They've wrapped and they're getting ready to go home the next day. So we all decided to go to dinner. It's 6 o'clock at night, and my wife is looking out the window. She said, there's a Tomlinson Baumberger truck parked in our driveway. I go outside, and Bob Kanjatavich is laying down on his chest, moving bark and mulch away from the base of the tree, trying to save this tree. It's not even a tree he planted. This is the same day that he paid to go to a seminar in the morning, gave me a testimonial. He's just all in white, and then comes over on his own time to my yard to take care of a tree that somebody else put in. That's what I mean about a customer service superhero.
Wow. There's also a Crystal Grove. There's a welcome sign story, isn't there?
Well, one day I had to stop by my landscaper, and I called ahead on the way past them, and I said, is it okay if I stop in? Not schedule an appointment. They said, sure, no problem. Not even 3 minutes later, I walk in, and there's a big sign, and it says, Tomlinson Baumberger welcomes Dave Romeo. Now, I know that the rest of them that I was meeting with did not put that sign out there. That was Crystal, who heard I was coming,
Wow.
who quickly thought of something she could do to demonstrate that it was more important to her that I had a great experience with the company than it was to me.
So this book, How to Wow, where can we get this?
You can get it at daveromeo.com on the website. That's the easiest place to get it. You could also get it at any of my seminars.
Okay. So insights on all of this. Let's bring this to some conclusion, what you want to leave us with.
Well, you know how you hear people say little things mean a lot? What I found is little things don't mean a lot. They mean everything. One of my clients told me this. This is one of my favorite legendary customer service stories. He was an electrical contractor, and most of the time when they do commercial buildings, it's not the customer who picks the subcontractors, it's the general contractor. But in this case, the owner of the building that was going up called him personally and said, I would like you to work on my next building. He said, I'd love to do that. Why did you want me? He said, because you did all the electrical work in one of my other buildings. And when I did my walkthrough, I noticed all the light switch plates in the whole building, and all of the screw heads, the grooves in all of them were straight up and down. And I know that if you paid that much attention to something that small, then that means you did everything else right.
Wow. Wow. It's always about stories, isn't it, Dave?
That's what we remember.
Yeah, we really do remember stories. And you've been doing a lot of that with your seminars.
Right.
How many years with seminars now, Dave?
In 2 weeks, it'll be the season opener for the 22nd year.
Wow. Okay, and this is the 18th book. Do you see an end? How many books, or what's your goal?
Well, I wrote another book already that's coming out this year.
Of course you did.
So it gives me a little time to maybe work on a second one this year, but there'll be at
Okay.
least one new one each year.
Okay, until you decide to stop.
Well, I don't know if I'll ever stop writing books,
Yeah.
even after I stop doing seminars.
Okay.
It'll just give me more time to write books.
Yeah. Well, there's so many ways that we can connect with you as well. Because if we go, you're doing things online now with the online university, correct?
Oh, yeah. So a lot of the seminar content is now available online. A lot of audio programs, all the audio programs are out there. There's a lot of things on there now that are not available anywhere else, including the episodes that you and I have done together.
Yeah. And Focused on Success, the TV show. This is in the 5th year. Wow, do you
Season number
believe
5.
do you believe it's been 5 years, Dave?
Wow, it's like a blink. And you know what I realized this morning? You and I, for 5 years, have been working on the show. People have come and gone through it. You and I are the only two people who have been on the entire run of the show.
Yeah, and and you and I have known each other for a while too, isn't
Oh,
it?
yes. It's over 20 years now.
Over 20 years, and it started with that, let's do a show together, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so here we are. Thank you for coming in again. You always have such wonderful thoughts, stories, advice, and things that we can take and grow on.
So glad to be back. Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today, too. I'm Diane Dayton with Behind the Lines, reminding you to look behind the lines. You might be surprised what you find.